I hereby call the City of Lloydminster regular council meeting of Monday, March 12th to order. At this time, we will take a silent moment of personal reflection. As a reminder, all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Lloydminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. Not seeing any, I'll move on to item number 2, additions or deletions to this agenda. None being noted, we'll move on to item number 3, which is the approval of the agenda presented. I'll let the council for direction. Councilor Thorson.
I move that the agenda dated March 12th, 2018 be approved.
Second. Councilor Monroe. Any further discussion or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to agenda item number 4, the approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Councilor Buckley.
Move that the regular council minutes dated February 26, 2018 be approved.
Seconder. Councilor Thorson. Any further comments or questions on our minutes? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 5, moving to business arising from the minutes. Not seeing any note, we'll move on to item number 6 is public hearings for second and third reading, which are scheduled for 2 p.m. So we'll move to number 7. This time on the agenda, new business, department reports and bylaws. 7.1, bylaws. I'll look to the city manager. City clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have the emergency management bylaw 8/2018, and Mr. Paulson, our coordinator of emergency management, will present it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Worship. Thank you, and City Council. Sorry, used to be on the bellow loud. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We would like to request the council to consider granting approval or granting first reading of bylaw 082/2018, the emergency management bylaw. The purpose of the updated bylaw is to update it to align with the Alberta Emergency Management Act and the requirements that the Act contains and requires for municipalities to adopt. So the City of Lloydminster Charter establishes that the Alberta Emergency Management Act has having effect in all parts of the City of Lloydminster. The Act provides authorities and protections that are really essential when a municipality is required to exercise special or extraordinary powers in dealing with a major emergency event in the community. It also requires that we establish certain administrative committees, appointment of a director of emergency management, and the development of a range of plans that ensure that we're able to respond effectively and appropriately to all emergency events. The proposed bylaw includes affirmation of the role and authority of the city manager. It also includes appointment of the manager of emergency management operations as the director of emergency management as defined under the Act. It defines an annual reporting requirement for administration back to council on the status of emergency preparedness in Lloydminster. This is essential because the Act is structured around the authority having jurisdiction, which is mayor and council for the city. It creates an emergency management advisory committee of council, and this is a smaller group of elected officials that provides advice to the emergency management agency both before, during, and after major emergency event. on any matter pertaining to the development of emergency plans and programs. It establishes an emergency management agency, which is really an administrative group within the city. Includes the appointment of the entire senior management team from the city. It includes ex officio appointments of contract and external agencies like our utility groups to ensure we have a broad selection of people brought together to plan for and respond to emergency events. And it delegates the authority to declare and to terminate a state of local emergency to the mayor or designate and the city manager jointly.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Already? Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. My main question around this would just be around some of the EMO training that we as a council received. Is there many substantial departures that would change any of the training that we received on this when we first received orientation at the beginning of our term?
Thank you. Yes, there will be some updated training required. The bylaw firmly fixes to the act, and there are some different approaches that we'll need to make sure council is aware of.
Okay, perfect. My only other question was around the Emergency Management Advisory Committee. So does this mean that within this council group we need to appoint members to additional committees?
Through your worship, that's correct.
I know that'll be done once this is in bylaw at some point in the future, I assume. It's not done somewhere in here that we would be doing that through this process?
We would need to appoint somebody, and then it will be done every year at an organizational meeting in October.
Councilor Fletcher.
Thank you very much. Is this a departure from what we did in the past? And if so, where's the... Because I thought we had an emergency plan in the past. But this is a bylaw which is different than the plan, I guess.
Through your worship, so the bylaw really is your instructions. The Emergency Management Act and the minister delegates certain responsibilities and authorities to the municipality, to our elected officials. From there, you pass a bylaw that delegates those responsibilities and authorities to administration and provides some framework for how we're going to operate. The plan is how we operationalize all of those instructions and authorities and figure out how we're going to work together as a group to manage a major emergency event.
Okay. So we've never had the bylaw before, we just had the plan.
Through your worship, no, we've had a bylaw, it just is due for an update, just to make sure that it's properly aligned with the Act.
I believe the bylaw is 6-2013, so
I just remember us
5
seeing
years
it.
old.
Yeah, so I just want to get 1 year, 5 years, or it's kind of
Okay, Councilor Baker first, and come back, Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Worship. I was just a tad confused. We're going to repeal the bylaw from 2013.
Correct, that's the intent.
Is this a mandated, provincial mandated document?
Leave that to you.
Like, what we're doing here is mandated. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that's correct. We
Okay, so-
the bylaw.
We're doing this because we've been told by the province of Alberta to do this?
Through your worship, no. Well, there've been reviews of the bylaw that indicated it needed to be updated and brought into alignment.
But what about Saskatchewan side? Where are we on that? Just a question.
So, through your worship, the charter, I'm
Okay.
pretty proud I've got that one figured. So the charter actually is an agreement between the province of Saskatchewan and the province of Alberta. And in the case of emergency management, specifically states that the Alberta Act is the act that has authority through the entire city, not either Saskatchewan or Alberta.
You should have checked the charter, is what you're telling me here. That's fair. Fair enough. On the advisory committee, with Councillor Jonathan's question, I have a question too. What do they mean about advisory? Like, don't you have to have some qualifications to be advisory to emergency services? Like, is there a qualification package that would tell us how to appoint advisory people, if that's what we're talking about?
Through your worship,
Because I don't feel qualified, for example.
the advisory committee is a number of city councilors that will come together to provide guidance and support to us. I would suggest that we're not likely going to come looking for technical emergency management stuff. What we need is your guidance and understanding of the community, your directions to where your policy direction goes at a strategic level as an organization. And it gives us the opportunity to focus our educational and information efforts to that group so that you're effective emissaries back to the full body of council at the end of the day.
Good answer, thank you. Yeah.
Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this may be getting down in the weeds a little bit, but as far as the ability to terminate a state of emergency, it said that the agency can pass a resolution. I was just curious because there are so many potential members of the agency. Is there another document that would establish how many votes of the top 20 plus members are required to make it a passed resolution or something along those lines? Just because it's a lot of people in a group, and I don't know if there's separate documents that would establish some sort of quorum, but that's a lot of individuals you'd have to get together to pass some sort of resolution to end a state of emergency.
Through your worship, there's three ways that it can end. One is the minister terminates it. The second is that it expires at the end of 7 days. The third is that there's a considered decision of council to end it. And in this case, the delegation, primary delegation would be to the mayor and the city manager jointly to cause it to occur in the first place and cause it to end in the last place.
Okay. Yeah, I was just confused because it referenced the agency as the group that would pass the resolution to terminate. And then where the agency is defined within this document, it consists of all the city senior staff and any other directors as necessary. And in fact, the only member, or is there any members of council on agency as it's defined within this document?
Through your worship, I'm pleased that you pointed that out. That's an interesting, and that is a direct quote from the Act. The agency means the jurisdiction, the municipality. So we'll make sure that our plan reflects our process.
Yeah, just because the way I read it was not that council is ending a state of emergency, it's this group of city management ends the state of emergency. And it's just the way it reads to me.
Right.
And whether that's just some language we have to clean up because of pulling something from another document while using our definitions at the same time, I don't know. Thank you.
Great point, Councilor. Okay.
Just
Councilor.
gonna add one more thing in there. I guess is when reading through the bylaw, there's no mention of when it will be reviewed or brought back to the table in event of changes or anything. Is it worthwhile adding that in there? Because if you read through it, it just says, here's all the pieces that we have, and yet here we are today changing the bylaw because we want to bring it to alignment, and there's nothing in the current bylaw that speaks to that.
Through your worship, there should be an annual review of the program, which starts with which should be a standard part of our operating procedure and would form part of our report back to council periodically. Would be recommendations in terms of the bylaw, the organizational design, that sort of stuff would be the things that we would come back to you annually about and would form a part of that interim report. So while it doesn't specify
And it doesn't reference it in the bylaw itself anyways. Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Ray. I'll look for council on direction on item 7.1.1. Councilor Buckingham.
The council grant bylaw 8-2018, emergency management bylaw, first reading.
Seconded. Councilor Thorson. Any further discussion or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to the agenda, 7.2 is the city manager's office. Don't show anything. 7.3, the office of the city clerk. To the city manager, to the city clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one item. It is the council accept the Alberta Tax Enforcement update as information. The assessment and taxation team is working on preparing for the Alberta lien registration at the end of March in accordance with the Lloydminster Charter. As of February 27th, 2018, there was And actually, I can update that number. We have 86, and as of just before lunch, we're down to 70. Alberta properties that were in arrears for more than 1 year. Administration continues to work with the property owners to obtain payment in their arrears by contacting the owners and other interests registered on title. The assessment and taxation team has made positive progress on the initial list and intends to continue to substantially reduce the number of liens that have been registered. Last year, there were actually only 6 liens registered on Alberta properties. The administration is anticipating to register around 15 to 25 this year, which is about on par with the historical average. The tax arrears list must be submitted to the registrar for lien registration by March 31st. The City of Lloydminster was able to cancel the public auction on January 10th due to the payments or satisfactory arrangements reached for payment. The city received full payment of arrears for all properties except for 3, which are currently on payment agreements. Of these 3 agreements, 2 have kept up with their scheduled payments in accordance with their arrangements. The third property owner has failed to make the last couple months' payments, but is working with the city. The city is working with the property owner and the mortgagee to arrange for full payment of these remaining arrears. There's currently only 2 properties remaining for last year's lien registration that would be due to further tax enforcement this fall, but we expect payment of the arrears by the property owner or mortgagee prior to then. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilor Corson.
I just have one question around the third property that has not been able, what does the process look like from here as far as the one that hasn't been able to make payments up to this point?
And if I could invite Councilor Kyle can answer that question.
Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Torreson. So the process would entail, technically we would have to re-advertise in the Alberta Gazette, and that's a 2-month process, and then we could hold another public auction if that property arrears were still not paid by then. Our intention is we're working with the mortgagee, and the mortgagees typically do not let properties go to that sale, so we're expecting that to be paid before we have to re-advertise.
Okay. So I guess the overall point is we're still kind of trying to work with them and trying to not go to the public auction part of the plan at this point.
Yes, it's
Okay, it's good to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions for Kyle at this time? I'd just like to point out, Kyle, thank you very much. I understand you lead the charge on this, and due to your hard work, you keep reducing this number. You've got one of the toughest jobs in the city, I believe, trying to collect money. So congratulations and keep up the good work. I appreciate you dwindling it down to 70, and as it's laid out here, I believe you can hopefully deliver on all of those. And we appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So I'll look to council for a recommendation on 7.3.1 regarding Alberta tax enforcement updates. Councilor Dachuk.
Move that council accept the Alberta tax enforcement update as information.
Seconder. Councilor Fagner. Any further discussion or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 7.4, Chief Financial Officer, and City Listed City Manager. Moving on to 7.5, Community Development Services. 7.51, City Manager through to Executive Manager Don.
Thank you. I'll call upon Patrick, Manager of Social Programs and Services, to deliver the presentation.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Try not to hunch too much today. So for your consideration today, we brought forward a draft of the Saskatchewan Lotteries Community Grant Policy. This issue was last July at a council meeting where we asked if it was feasible for us to bring forward a policy that would allow for the incorporation of the Saskatchewan Lotteries grant allocations to be the recommendations to be made by the FCSS advisory policy. Just to backtrack for a moment, the Saskatchewan Lotteries Community Grant Program is a grant provided through Saskatchewan Lotteries to municipalities to support recreation, cultural, and sport activities conducted by nonprofit organizations run by volunteers. Every year, we apply to Saskatchewan Lotteries and receive a lump sum of funds that are then distributed to these groups within the community. The attached policy document outlines the process by which the FCSS Advisory Committee would be brought into the process of making recommendations for the Sask Lotteries grants. It's not very different from the process we use for the FCSS allocations, in which the call for applications would go out to the community through newspapers, social medias, etc. We would then collect applications and review those applications and provide the eligible applications to the advisory committee, who would then meet and provide recommendations which administration will bring back to council for final approval. The options in regards to the policy are that council approves Saskatchewan Lotteries community grant policy. This will ensure that our policies continue to reflect best practices and are up to date. Or option 2 is that council direct administration to complete additional consultation with the advisory committee and or make changes to the draft of the Saskatchewan Lotteries community grant program policy and bring it back to a future council meeting for decision. There is also a note in here that the governance implications are that the creation of a new policy may require changes to existing policies or bylaws, potentially an update in the future to the FCSS Advisory Committee bylaw.
Questions? Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Patrick. Maybe the appropriate opportunity to ask how we're making out on recruiting new members to the FCSS Advisory Board, since I know we're currently looking to add a few to our board, and that's of course the board that will oversee this should this go forward. Have we had some new blood?
We've actually received 3 applications, and upon the closing of the call for applicants to that advisory board, we will be conducting interviews with the assistance of a couple of volunteers from the advisory committee, which once we have a decision on our recommendations, we'll be bringing those to council for approval.
Good, just a good opportunity to let people know there's an opportunity looming right now where you could join the FCSS board. So, thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Councilor Torres, and then Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question on the current model. Who would be, or what types of people would be on the internal adjudication committee?
The internal adjudication committee is made up based on the past admin report, a representative from the finance department, typically a financial controller, myself or someone from my department. At the time it would have been the, I believe, FCSS department, but we've undergone some work changes since then, as well as a representative from community services, ideally from the, I believe at the time it was recreation facilities. I mean, there's a mistake on that. I'm trying to capture those 3 branches.
All right, thank you. My only comment on this is that I think it's a really good idea to kind of give the community some say in this, and the FCSS is already a group that, from my perception, gives objective, fair allocation of funds. So I think it's a perfectly good way to kind of get community involvement in distributing the Sask Lottery funds. So I think it's a great policy. That's all I have to say on that. Thank you. Thanks for bringing it to us.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Roger. I was okay with the policy until we got to number 6. And I have some real concerns with item 6 in this policy. We say, any member of administration found to be in violation of this policy may be subject to a disciplinary action. Such action may be dependent upon the nature of the breach of the policy. Discipline may range from written warning to dismissal. Item 2 says, any member of council found to be in violation of this policy may be dealt with utilizing the code of conduct, bylaw or provisions of the Lloydminster Charter. Who would want to volunteer their time to sit on a volunteer board and be subject to those kind of rules? They're not going to do anything wrong, but it just, to me, it doesn't really tell you what you have to do wrong, but you could get a written warning or a staff member could be fired. Now, that's too much for me, and I'm voting against this policy based on that one clause alone, because I don't think volunteers are running over here to jump on board, and they don't come here to knowingly make mistakes, but why do we need a clause that's so harsh within a volunteer group? So.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. That's something we can definitely look at rewording through the policy, I think. That's something we can work with Lead Services on to get the wording correctly, if that means through the code of conduct policy that we can deal with that.
Those clauses are fairly standard throughout most policies. They don't mean that a person's going to be terminated. It just means that if they did something that egregious outside the policy, that's what could occur. In most cases, I would dare to say that this isn't something that's going to occur.
But Your Worship, if I may, it's in there. And that's what bothers me. It's like, I've been around long enough to know that volunteers aren't the easiest thing to find. But you read that and you say, what's going on here? That's the way this whole thing hit me when I read it. I was fine until, like I say, I got to number 6 and I was saying, whoa, this is...
I appreciate your comments, Councillor, and I think that we need to seek some clarity from administration, because administration to me is someone that's paid. That's the interpretation I have. Volunteers fall into a different category, so if you volunteered and you sat on this committee, I think that, as the city clerk referred to, many of our policies, and as some may or may not be very clear, the need for clarity is important. The challenge is, it does read that way, and it should, I believe every policy in the city should read this way, to encourage that the message and the tone would be that if I cross the line, any member of this council crosses the line, or at the city administration crosses the line to a personal benefit, or in this case, the violation of policy, that's when that would be applicable. For a volunteer, it wouldn't be, but I think that message of a penalty is simply, in most cases, I couldn't imagine, but in the day and age of today, that someone may say, oh, here's an opportunity, there's a gap in policy. That's my one concern. Not saying that it exists, and I think that as the city clerk alluded to, we'll find this in a lot more of our policies going forward, for just laying it out for administration and for council, as the second 6.2 leads to it. There is ramifications for violating policy versus the volunteers, and I think that is the one difference, I believe, and we can clean that up, certainly.
Well, just as a follow-up here, Worship, it's not the council I'm worried about. We have a code of conduct. That applies to everything we do. We don't need every little piece of paper we sign. You don't need a clause like that in it to say, if you do that, you're in trouble. We already know that from the laws of council. I have no trouble with that. Administration, they understand their role, and it's their job to make sure we follow the rules. That's okay. It's the volunteer I'm talking about mainly. You're getting volunteers, and if they read that, I'm not sure whether they'd be very comfortable.
And I think we can provide, administration, direct that back to administration to provide some clear wording in that, I guess would be the word to use. Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. My only comment is I think it's pretty clear. It says administration, it defines who administration is, it defines who the committee is. The committee is the volunteers, administration is those distributing the funds, and council, we all know who council is. I have no issue with providing a penalty on there or the teeth of any policy and the ramifications if the policy is not followed to the purpose or the spirit of the rules you're creating. That's the whole point of making a policy. It's the whole point of doing this, so that we could have just done this all the same. We could have not made a policy and just said, okay, FCSS, you guys can go do your thing, and there's no specific rules around the Saskatchewan liquor or Saskatchewan Lotteries Community Grant. Anyway, we could have done that, and then you could run into a scenario where, you know, someone just decided, oh, this is going to my pool hall. Yeah, it's a pool hall. It fits within what I'm calling are the rules. And then what's the ramifications for that person when you have no policy to back it up? To me, it's serving its desired purpose by adding things like that in there. It is providing the appropriate teeth to any policy, which is, in my opinion, required, so that you don't have anyone violating said policy. Thank you.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. As the council member that this might be referring to directly as the guy who sits on the FCSS committee, as appointed by council, I'm way more comfortable with it in there than I am with it out of there. You know, it needs to be there, and I don't see that this goes down the stretch to any volunteer. It's specifically speaking, like Council Torrson said, to council and administration. So for me, I absolutely want this in there like any other policy. If I can't sit here and be transparent enough to be on the FCSS committee and not try and make the right decision, I shouldn't even be sitting in this chair. So I'm 100% fine with this.
Councilor Batcha.
Yeah, I would be basically repeating what other people have said at this point, and I think the only question would be is there a comment to be made about volunteers and people who volunteer in this board, do they sign a waiver of any kind or sort, as any other volunteer might be in other institutions, organizations? And if not, you know, is that something to consider? The second part of this would be that I always want to come back and close the loop on the work that's being done by these various organizations. We need to find every opportunity to celebrate the good work that's being done vis-a-vis these dollars. I'm assuming are doing good work. So in that reporting process, somehow through either Leo's communication or whatever else, I really want this to be flown as high and as loudly and as celebratory as we can, because again, we have volunteers that are supporting, we have agencies that are doing good work in this community who want to reflect the city that's doing great things as well. And for me, that's that part of the back end. And it says there's a reporting process, but you've heard me ask about this before at the FCSS, other the Alberta grants as well, and for me, I think that's a real important component. Even the organizations that fill those forms out and say, here's what we did, it's a form of celebration, acknowledging the good work they did internally amongst the people that do that, I think, and it's important to go through that step.
Any other comments, Councilor?
Well, this is my last one. In this policy, it doesn't say what the law is, doesn't say what the rules are, doesn't say what the penalty is. I rest my case. I don't care who you're putting on the mat. It doesn't say what the penalties are. You know, are they going to hang you? Or are they going to put you in jail for one day? That's what I'm talking about. So read the policy. It doesn't say what the penalties are for or what. It just says you're in trouble. And I don't like it. So that's enough debate as far as I'm concerned.
Councilor Pegg.
I would like the council to approve the Saskatchewan Lotteries Community Grant Policy. Make a motion.
We'll make that motion. All right. Second. Councilor Monroe. Any further discussions, comments, or debate? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. It has reached just, thank you, Patrick. The 2 o'clock hour has reached. We're just past 2 o'clock, so I would like to return to the agenda, moving back up to the agenda of 6.6 on the agenda, which is public hearings, and second and third readings of bylaws. At this time, I would like to have a reading of bylaw 3-2018 proposed redistricting. I'd like to note before we begin that during the public hearing, we ask that you respect the views of everyone here and allow each person their time to speak without interruption. Each person wishing to speak has up to 5 minutes to make a presentation to council. If you do wish to speak, please state your name for the record and whether you are in support or opposed to the proposed bylaw. When you are finished speaking, please remain at the front as council may wish to ask you questions. All discussions with council members, city staff, and delegation shall be directed to the chairperson. Any questions brought forward by the public, which are not able to be addressed during this meeting, will be done so at the next council meeting. Council will not debate this matter, but the hearing and decision regarding whether or not to grant the bylaw future readings will be dealt with following this public hearing. I declare the public hearing for bylaw 3-2018 proposed redistricting open at 2:05 p.m. I would ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not the public hearing has been advertised and notice has been given in accordance with the applicable legislation.
I confirm that this public hearing has been advertised, notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. This public hearing was advertised in Meridian Booster on February 27th and on March 6th.
I would ask the city clerk to summarize the purpose of this hearing.
Purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 3-2018 being a proposed redistricting.
I will now call upon anyone wishing to speak on the proposed bylaw. I will now ask if anyone else wishes to speak on the proposed bylaw who has not yet had the opportunity to do so. Not seeing anyone approaching, I will declare the public hearing for bylaw 3-2018 closed at 2:06 p.m. This time I would like to declare the public hearing for bylaw 4-2018 proposed road closure open at 2:06 p.m. I would ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not the public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation.
I confirm that this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. This public hearing was advertised in Meridian Booster on February 27th and on March 6th.
I would ask the city clerk to summarize the purpose of this hearing.
The purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 4-2018 being a proposed road closure.
I will now call upon anyone wishing to speak on the proposed bylaw. I will now ask if anyone else wishes to speak on the proposed bylaw who has not yet had the opportunity to do so. Having no one coming forward, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 4-2018 closed at 2:08 p.m. Returning back to the agenda to we've completed 6.1. 6.2, second and third readings of bylaws. 6.2.1. What do you see, motion for the city clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendation that council granted bylaw 3-2018 being a bylaw to redistrict lot 4, block 3, plan 102116225 within the southwest quarter of section 1, Troop Road 50, range 28, west of the 3rd meridian, from light industrial L1 or L1 light industrial to district C2 highway corridor commercial. District third and final, or second reading. Apologize. I can confirm that there's been no changes to this bylaw since its first reading.
Thank you, City Clerk. I'll look for a direction from City Council. Councilman Rowe.
The council grant bylaw 3-2018 being a bylaw to redistrict lot 4, block 3, plan 102116225 within the southwest quarter section 01 Township 50, range 28, west of the 3rd meridian, from light industrial district C to C2 highway corridor commercial district, second reading.
Seconder, Council Baker. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Look back to City Clerk regarding the second recommendation.
Yes, Your Worship. It's the council grant bylaw 3-2018, the third and final reading.
Let the council for direction. Councilman Rowe.
The council grant bylaw 3-2018 being a bylaw to redistrict lot 4, block 3, plan 102116225 within the southwest quarter of section 01 Township 50, range 28, west of 3rd meridian, from light industrial district to C2 highway corridor commercial district, third and final reading.
Seconder, Council Baker. Any further discussion or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 6.2.2, City Manager through the City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendation is the council grant bylaw 04-2018 being a bylaw to close plan 4236 HW, all that portion of land lying within the limits of Area A Plan 182 containing .02 hectares, 0.05 acres, more or less, within southeast half section 12, troop 50, range 1, west of the 4th meridian, a second reading.
Thank you,
And I
Senator.
can confirm that the bylaw has not changed since its first reading.
Thank you. I look to council for direction. Councilor Dudchek.
Council grant bylaw number 04-2018 being a bylaw to close plan 4236HW, all that portion of land lying within the limits of Area 8 Plan 182 containing 0.02 hectares, more or less within the southeast half section 12, township 50, range 01, west of the 4th meridian, second reading.
Seconder? Councilor Monroe. Any comments or questions? Before I call for the question. Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Look to council for recommendation on third and final reading.
All right, the council grant bylaw number 04-2018 being a bylaw to post plan 4236HW, all that portion of land lying within the limits of Area 8 Plan 182 containing 0.02 hectares, more or less within the southeast one half. What am I reading wrong? Anyway, section 12, township 50, range 01, west of the 4th meridian, third and final reading.
Seconder. Councilor Monroe. Any further questions or comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, returning back to the agenda. 7.6 is operations. I don't see anything listed, but I'll check with the city manager. Nothing. 7.7 is the chief of staff. Nothing. Moving on to item number 8. I'll look to the city clerk for correspondence or information items.
No, your worship.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, Mayor and Council reports. It was a very quiet weekend for his worship, so I enjoyed it and had the opportunity to relax. But I know this coming weekend we certainly have a lot of activities planned in the community, so I won't carry this on any longer. But certainly our community is always is enjoying the nice weather, and we'll hope that people are able to get out to the many functions this weekend that are ongoing. Anyone have any items that they'd so like to note at this time? Council Dick? Council Baker?
Your worship, I mean, we had a bit of a water distribution issue this week in the city. If that's okay to...
You'd like to...
Just a question. It was private property connected to the municipal system, is what I understood. Why wasn't there a shut-off at the private connection? Because I thought the law, anytime you hooked onto the city system, there had to be a shut-off valve.
I'll look to the city
Maybe
manager.
I'm reading it wrong, but the email I got, that's all we had.
Okay, city manager to executive manager Rodney.
Yes, there should be a private shut-off valve for each of those private systems. In this particular case, I'm told that they located it, but it was malfunction. It didn't work, so they had to turn it off in the street. So this was, you're speaking of 56th Avenue. Just to confirm, this is 56th Avenue between 29th Street and 30th Street. That was last weekend, but I just want to make sure it's not about the same.
I had a couple of calls over it, and I said, I don't know what the issue is, that's all. So,
I think we're talking the one I emailed out to council. Are we talking about the one I emailed out to council?
Did you get a note? Is that the one we did send the city manager did send out a note last weekend, councillors, or is this a different?
yeah, well, I don't know. Was it, maybe
I think it's the same one, but yeah, I think we're talking the same.
I wasn't even in the city when I got it.
Okay.
I just didn't know what the connection problem was. I was asked about that, and I said, I don't know. Just,
It was a malfunction in the private system, and there was no way that they could shut it off and require us to have to shut the street off. There were a number of questions raised over that, and I'm in the process of doing a review of what we did right and what we could possibly fix in the future.
Any other comments regarding council reports? Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick second to say thanks to everybody who came out for the Battle of the Badges game. We haven't had a meeting since I guaranteed win day here at council last time. Vegas Sportsbook was right. It was an RCMP win. But a great time was had by all. And roughly, I think from what I'm told, 600 or so people out to the event. So some good money was raised for local charities by two great agencies here in our city. So just a quick thanks to everybody for coming out. It was a great time.
It was indeed well attended. No further reports from council. I'll move on to item number 10. Is there any other matters that this council should be dealing with at this time? Not seeing any, I will look to inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, there are requests for yourself, Mayor Albers, as well as Councilors Thorson and Baker.
Thank you very much. I would look for council for direction. Council Sargent.
Great.
Second. Council Monroe, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.